God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Selah. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow, and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Now, of course, that the song that we sang this morning, is reference to this psalm. Is based on this psalm, and I've been thinking about that song, pretty much the last 2-3 weeks, and we have to stop sometimes because we do kind of get into our own heads and we try to think, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to set my mind on this, I'm going to do this, I got to do this. And we have to stop and ask ourselves, who has control here? Because a lot of times we like to arrest that control from God, and not knowingly sometimes. Sometimes we just kind of stumble into that. We make our own plans and we set out to do something, we're going to accomplish it. But who has control? In going through here, and it says here in the later part of this psalm, the heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved, and he uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. And then it says, he maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear asunder, and he burned the chariots in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. And we have a lot of reasons today in different situations to be anxious, to have a fear of the unknown, of what's coming, or these things that are coming about on the earth, and all these things are these fears and anxieties. These things are basically control mechanisms that the enemy uses. As long as he can control you with a fear, with an anxiousness, with what if, he has control. If we take our eyes off of Christ and focus on the fear, on the anxiety, on these things that mount up against us. So I want to turn to Psalm 37, and fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and the judgment as the noonday. Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. And then it goes on here and talks about the different things that that's going to come upon those who go against God and His will, and kind of do their own things and try to become a stumbling block or whatever, and basically saying rest in the Lord. When we see all these things coming up against us and coming up and we see all the terrible things, the wicked things of the world, and how things are kind of twisted. And we see all these things as, fret not, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, and because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. So those people that are out to harm or out to destroy, or the enemy has influenced them to do things, rest in the Lord, wait patiently for Him. Be still and know that I am God. So as individuals, we can be crippled by these things. Fear and anxiety, the what ifs, these are all tools that the enemy will use to control us. He is perfectly happy for God's people to be frozen in fear. And you see this, and this is even a military strategy, to show off, show your power, make the other army fear, well, I'm not going to attack them because this is the power that they have, And I mean, that's even a strategy, for the military to use. But as long as we're frozen, as long as we're not moving, God is light. Light is always moving, and God's will is always going forward. So as long as we're frozen in fear, for one, it elevates the enemy. It elevates him, because he sees that as a control mechanism of power. And secondly, it takes your eyes off of Christ and sets them on the circumstances that you're having to deal with, and that's the last place our eyes need to be. So as a church body, collectively, being crippled is a huge problem. The body of Christ is a representation of God's kingdom on earth. Christ working through his body to accomplish God's will in the earth on a supernatural scale. The response to the workings of the church from the outside world is supposed to, it's supposed to include a dropped jaw, a moving to tears. When they went forth after the day of Pentecost, people were just astounded. How these men knew Jesus? That was the only explanation. The works that they were doing in everything and everyone. This was something that was just a jaw-dropping thing. So this is supposed to be normal in the church. Not where we see today, where let's go here, and let's do the same thing over and over again. It's supposed to come with a jaw-dropping experience and moving to tears. Christ's attributes and power are supposed to shine through and give no room to the constraints of reality. We are called to individually and corporately live and work above circumstances. Whenever God has commission for his people, there's a general commission to go out and save. And speak to those who we can, to share the good news, but there are also the little things that he guides us to do, and it talks about this in experiencing God, waiting on him, and then when he moves, you move, and you go where he goes, and you work where he's working, and a lot of times we have this fear, this unknowing, how am I going to do that? I've never done that before. I'm not qualified to do that. It's like, no, this is something that he is calling you to. He's going to provide the means. He's going to provide the strength and the tools to get this done. And it goes over several different experiences in the Experiencing God lessons, about how they just stepped out and whatever they needed was met, and it was such it's such a testimony to those around who don't know or don't see how they're going to accomplish whatever they're setting out to do, and they see that these provisions are met, and they're provided for. So it's a constant reliance upon him and a rest in him. So let's turn to Proverbs chapter 3. verse 5. I'm going to kind of skip around here in this chapter. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. Skip down to 24. When thou liest down, and thou shalt not be afraid, yea, thou shalt lie down, and thou shalt sleep. Thy sleep shall be sweet. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. Or Amplified I believe says out of the trap, or from the trap, to keep thy foot from the trap. So this is talking about those tools, those mechanisms that the enemy uses to take your eyes off of Christ, to keep you out of the trap, as long as you be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh, for the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. I need to look and see exactly how that's worded in the Amplified here. Being caught in a trap or some hidden danger is what it tacks on to the end of that. So it's doubling down here, saying, as long as you're not focused on the fears, the anxieties, the what ifs, and all these things that are coming up against us, it's keep your focus on God, and He's going to keep your foot out of that trap. He's going to keep you from being bogged down in all that what if and anxiety. God's plan is not supposed to make logical sense to us. When step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. We like to put things on a timeline, and we like to get things done in a list. And it's not always going to work out like that. So we don't always know His plans. So if it does, it's probably more of your doing than His doing. It's probably something that you've laid out and you're trying to get done. But in hindsight, we can always, or we may be able to look back if we can see the big picture and see this the tapestry that God's woven together using His church. Corporately, see the mercy and grace that was afforded in each of the little these side things and how they fit together, and it's a neat thing to see that whenever it's presented. But let's go on to Isaiah 55, verse 8. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. And it's just kind of a reinforcement of what I was saying. That we're not always going to know what's coming up, and naturally that makes us fearful. When we don't know what's coming, when we don't know what's going to happen. The unknown is always something that kind of strikes fear, because it's not something that we can control. Who has control again? We have to always ask ourselves that question. So daily, we see these mountains on the horizon in the path of our journey, and I've kind of put this symbolic thing together here to kind of illustrate it. So as we see these mountains off in the distance, we think, we're 30, 40 miles away from them. We can see them, they're like that on the horizon. And we're like, okay, I can run up and down that mountain easily. It's not that big. How big can it be? I see it off in the distance, but how big can that be? So we're dwelling in our own strength there. We're trusting in our own strength. So as we get closer and closer, we begin to see it grow and think, that mountain is a lot bigger than I thought it was. I'm not sure if I can even walk up and down that mountain. So we start questioning our own strength, start wavering. We start focusing on this mountain in front of us, which is it's also, a mechanism of fear. So as we approach the foot of this mountain, we stumble, we're stuttering, and we look up, and we look straight up this mountain, and we think, I cannot see myself making it halfway up this mountain. Maybe I'll stay here at the base, be comfortable knowing that I can stop, just sit right here, and not even try. And there are a lot of things like that in our daily lives that, as they're far off, it's like, well, yeah, it's coming, we'll get there, we'll figure it out when we get there. We get there and it's like paralyzed, you're paralyzed by fear. So, if we look at this scenario in a spiritual sense, we can probably give that mountain a different name every month, every week, every day we see this mountain come up on us. So as the days and the hours tick by and we get closer to this mountain, our strength and belief start wavering. It starts, we start seeing this and we start trying to put it in our a logical aspect. We start seeing, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to do this. We may even become crippled. We'll camp at the foot of that mountain only to wake up every morning to see that oppressive summit each day. And there's a lot of people that are like that. They'll put something off, and every day they wake up and they're already oppressed by this thing that's in front of them. And talking about a test, that I'm supposed to be taking, and I've kind of had to postpone this thing for almost a year now, so it's kind of like every few months something's come up and I've had to postpone it. So it's kind of like, it's supposed to be a difficult test, so it's like, okay, it'll get here when it gets here, and I postpone it for 2 months. Okay, well, and then it comes right up to it and you're like, it's kind of daunting all of a sudden. So it's kind of like that, and we have those things every week. We have something like that every month. We have something like that. We can name that mountain anything, and we'll start questioning. So we'll camp out for this mountain, and each day we'll see this thing, and if we could take our eyes off of that mountain for just a moment and refocus it on God, He's still saying, "Be still, rest in me." Know that I am God, that the mountain is already conquered. I will bring you over and past whatever that mountain is. So, as long as we could keep our focus where it needs to be and not on the circumstances, this is the only way to get over those mountains. So God has given us that hope with assurance, that hope that we can conquer these mountains through Him, because He's already given us that victory. So it was something, that also with the ark, we went and saw the ark, and just being inside there, and they had the sounds, like the sound effects as you're in the ark, as if something was, as if it was, at the time, they had the thunderstorms, they had the animals stomping around, and you could hear like sawing and all kinds of stuff going on, different sections you moved into, and you try to put yourself in that position of what that would have been like. You are the only family left. You're on this big ship, and you're tossed about in waves, that it's storming, and it wasn't. People think of the flood, they think of rising waters. This was a violent thing, that came through. And you got to understand that this thing, the massive size that it was, it's like you had to have a lot of trust in what God was telling you to do to board something like that, and to be in there, and for Him to protect you, to rely on His hand to protect you, and it was just an amazing thing, because a lot of us, if we hear tornado sirens or we hear a thunderstorm coming through, we kind of are worried about it, but this was the ocean coming in, and carrying this thing away. So when we think about those type of things, those things that come up against us, and we see these mountains, we have to ask ourselves that question: who has the control? You know, it's not us. You know, it's not us. We can't do anything in those situations. We can try. We'll probably fail. You know, but who has the control? So in Matthew 14, just want to reference back to this. It's very popular account. This is in the Amplified. I pulled this from the Amplified. When the disciples, starting in 26, when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately he spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter replied to him, "Lord, if it is really you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the effects of the wind, he was frightened, and he began to sink, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus extended his hand and caught him, saying, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him with awe-inspired reverence, saying, "You are truly you are the Son of God." You know, and if I were in this position, I kind of thought about it. If I was in this position, it says, you know, when he saw the effects of the wind and the storm, he was frightened and began to sink. So his eyes focused on the circumstance. You know, there was a storm, there's winds, there's waves, you know, and he saw all these things. That's what his eyes started to focus on. That's when he started to sink, you know. And then it says right here, it's almost a comical thing, you know, and when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Okay. Me, I'd have probably waited till the wind ceased, and I would have tried to get out of the boat, you know. But you know, it's like, you know, come in the storm, in the circumstance that's going on, whatever's going on, come, you know, and don't focus on whatever's going on. And you know, it's such an amazing picture because, you know, it's like Peter didn't wait for the storm to cease. He didn't wait for all the winds to calm down. And I'll come to you in a minute. Let's just, you know, let's let this lighten up a little bit, you know. He didn't say that. I'm coming to Jesus because he told me to come. That's his command to me, come, you know. And that's the kind of heart that we have to have. We have to have a willing heart to step out into the storm when we're told to step out into the storm. He's going to meet us there. He's going to provide for us. I mean, that's what he's promised to us. So if he commands us to do something, we need to not wait. I know the experiencing God, you know, lessons are like that. Move when he says move. You know, don't wait it out or whatever, and then try to do it in your own strength. So he is there to always meet us with those provisions to be our refuge, to be our strength when we need it. And you know, I didn't have a whole lot this morning, but I mean, I've been thinking about that song this past couple of weeks, and you know, and I just this has been kind of going over in my mind, this story of where Peter got out of the boat, and it was in the middle of the storm instead of after the storm or whatever, and I'm thinking, you know, he stepped out into that unknown, out into that storm, out into that danger, and God was there to save him, you know. And we can walk on water and live above those circumstances, those physical things that come against us, because God has commanded us to do so. And all we have to do is have that belief and that trust and that focus on God and Christ, and understand that he has already conquered those mountains.